Steve Bannon on the hot seat. The former White House chief strategist will testify before the House Intelligence Committee today as part of the Russia election meddling probe. It's Bannon's first appearance on Capitol Hill since the firestorm over the release of Fire and Fury, that book. In that book, Bannon slammed President Trump's son, Donald Trump Jr., and Paul Manafort's June 2016 meeting in Trump Tower with a Russian lawyer, calling it, quote, treasonous. Joining us this morning is the Daily Caller editor-in-chief, Christopher Bedford. Christopher, Bannon's comments from the book are sure to come up today, no?
Yeah, I think that's one of the main reasons why he's been called so quickly. He got word about 5 days ago or last week that he would be called before the House Intelligence Committee, likely this week, and now it seems like it's going to be today. He quickly lawyered up. He hired the same lawyer, actually, that other Republicans had hired when they've been dealing with Mueller in the past, and he has always been a key character who was there in the Trump White House, in the Trump campaign. He's had a front row seat. And he's also had a long history of working with the press and leaking things that sometimes attack some of his opponents and colleagues within the administration. Now he's accused a member of the Trump White House, a member of the Trump family, of treason, or said that he thinks it could be treason. I think the Republicans and the Democrats in the committee are going to want to talk to him about that.
Well, Bannon's testimony comes as the House Intelligence Committee's top Democrat is pushing to release the testimony from the founder of Fusion GPS. You got Adam Schiff, the California congressman, claiming partial leaks from the transcript with Glenn Simpson are misleading. Last week, the Senate Judiciary Committee's top-ranking Democrat, Dianne Feinstein, just went ahead and released her panel's testimony with Simpson in full. It kind of caught Chuck Grassley off guard with that, shedding new light on the infamous Russian dossier. Your thoughts on this?
Senator Feinstein was the weirdest thing I saw last week. First, she said that she shouldn't have done that, but she felt that she was pressured to. And then she said that she wasn't pressured at all, and she'd never said that, but there's recordings of her saying that. And then she said she must have done that because she had a cold. It seems like a really, really weird thing for her to do. I do sympathize a little bit more with Congressman Schiff, because when you're on these backdoor meetings and these off-the-record congressional things, and politicians on both sides will choose the selected part of that transcript that bolsters their case more, and they'll leak that to the press. And when that happens, it's not unusual for someone to say, why don't we just have full disclosure here and let the American people decide?
Chris, it's General Jack Keane.
Yeah, having spoken to some people in the White House, particularly during the transition and then when they initially took over, Bannon, I was told, was one of the guys that had some real concern that the previous administration was using intelligence agencies to sort of gather information on the current administration, and they were using that unmasking technique to do that. Do you have any information on that? Will that be part of the inquiry that the Intelligence Committee will be making?
I don't have any specific information, and that will be part of the inquiry, but that's obvious, General. As you can see, not only was the Obama administration trying to kneecap the incoming administration over declaring new public lands or lowering rates over at HUD, or doing a lot of different things that trip things up, but we see a massive campaign to unmask. And we've got some reporters that are pretty close to a story about exactly how frantic the unmasking was in the last few days of the Obama administration. And if we can nail that down, I think that'll absolutely lend credence to Bannon's fears and to Trump's fears that the intelligence community was not exactly on his side and that those leaks were political in nature.
Chris, can you provide any more detail about that story you're working on?
Not yet, because I'm still working at the Reporter, and we haven't even gone to legal, so they'd kill me if I did that. But we have some stories that are working out. The problem is, unlike with the Washington Post or some of these other groups, I want to have two sources at least on the record, or people who I trust before we can move forward with the story. Finding that first one is always fun, but it is maddening to try and find a second person sometimes.
Right, but in terms of the fallout from the Fusion, just focus on the Fusion GPS dossier that was put together, again, funded by Democrats, and Christopher Steele's work with the FBI, which we found out some when the transcript was released last week. But what will come out of this? Will people, will individuals be charged with crimes? Will there be changes within the FBI of how it operates? People just want, Washington looks so dirty that people just want it cleaned up in some way, shape, or form, and it really goes to the story you're working on about unmasking. Will people feel the heat and really pay a penalty for nefarious doings?
I would guess that not as many people as should pay a penalty will pay a penalty, just because that's often the way that power works, and a lot of people in D.C. have power. I think that Steele is probably pretty worried right now. If he lied to the FBI, as Senator Lindsey Graham has said he thinks he did, that's a crime, and that's going to cause him a lot of trouble. And they're also trying to look into and exactly figure out who are all the Russian sources for Steele, who is he working with. We know that the Democrats paid for things, but we want to know exactly who pulled this together and who moved on that. The FBI, which Americans, I think, largely want to trust because it's filled with really good agents who put their lives on the line, also appears to have had some political hacks who had their fingers in every single aspect of this investigation, changing words from what appeared to be a criminal complaint and Comey's memo about Hillary Clinton to something that was much more watered down and having an impact on the national conversation. People keep on saying it's horrible for Republicans or Democrats to attack the FBI or disparage them when they have good agents. But the FBI has to be responsible for itself now, I think, and clean house on some of these agents who so clearly appear to be politicized.
Bill McGurn has an editorial in the Wall Street Journal today entitled "Wanted, an Honest FBI," and his lead sentence is a quote from James Kallstrom, a frequent guest on this program. "I do not recognize the agency I gave 20 years of my life to."
It's not a good place. It's not a good place for the FBI to be at all. And there is a little bit of a myth that's been built up around the FBI ever since the Nixon years of complete autonomy. You can't question us. How dare you question us? We're the police. But it's also a part of government. And they were so careful to not try to give documents over to members of Congress. Of course they should give the documents over. I'm glad we've gotten to a place now where American congressmen and congresswomen are able to actually look over everything the FBI has, and hopefully we'll get to the bottom of this. And having some of the key players, such as Bannon in the investigative room, we probably have Hope Hicks this week, coming in here. Corey Lewandowski is going to be hauled forward. You start to get the interviews with the primary characters. You start to be able to get a better idea of what actually happened.
General, quick question.
You know, I just hope we learn the right lesson here. I mean, the Russians certainly are taking a victory lap, given what they've been able to do to us and undermining confidence in our government, in the process itself. They've got multiple investigations going on. We've got a special counselor. Both administrations, the Clinton team is certainly damaged by this. The Obama team has been damaged by it. The Trump team has been damaged by it. And we know the Russians are going to come again. Why wouldn't they? They've achieved such a victory. I hope we're going to have better defense than we currently have.
I agree, General, and there's no amount of Facebook advertisements or other things that the Russians could have possibly done to try and affect this election, as they've been doing for decades, that have nearly the undermining effect on U.S. democracy that the media and some of the Democrats' reactions to this have when they've called into question every single aspect of the United States, our political system, because of what appears to be a relatively small and insignificant amount of Russian meddling.
Christopher, it was great to see you. We can't wait for that story. Get back to work. Chris Bedford, thank you so much.